Greetings, Remnant and online friends. Welcome to the Midweek Refuel, where we reject the noise of modern self-importance and drink instead from the well of ancient wonder. We seek out the humility of wisdom past because modern wisdom is so pompous it can't even see around itself. It loops and circles. It builds mirrors instead of windows. And today's lesson is about little people, but not in condescension. No, little people in calling. For the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. And Chesterton, that strange prophet in prose, saw it clearly. I have met, in my lifetime, incredibly miserable people during my sojourn through these woods we call life. I find these miserable people at the bank. I find these miserable people at the grocery store. I even find them at church. They smile, they grin, they pretend to be happy, but I can tell by the way they look past the world instead of into it. I can tell by how quickly they retreat from silence or flinch when real joy draws near. I can tell because they do not wonder. They do not play. They no longer believe in the dignity of little things. And Chesterton knew this misery. He did not mock it. He diagnosed it. It is the mystery of the man who has made himself too large to see the sky. The man who no longer sees a stranger as an entire story or a child as a sign to something greater. The one who has explained everything but no longer experiences anything. It is the flatness of a mind that loops around itself like a snake devouring its own tail. They grin, yes, but it's a grin with no gladness in it. A face that's been worn thin by self-reference. This is why today's lesson matters. To be little is to be free. To be little is not to be foolish. It is to be formable. It is to be interruptible, curious, awestruck again. I have met the miserable, not because they lack laughter, but because their laughter has no landing. Many millennials, for instance, return to the glowing comfort of cartoons and castles, not because they are immature, but because they are unfathered. They seek the kingdom of magic because the kingdom of meaning feels like it betrayed them, and in many ways it did. The phrase Disney adults, you've heard it. Disney adults, so often mocked and belittled, are not absurd. If you're paying attention, they are aching with everything in them. They crave a world where wrongs are righted, where songs mean something, where villains are clear and innocence is honored. But without Christ, this nostalgia becomes a loop. It becomes a cycle of sentiment without sanctification. Chesterton saw this coming long time ago. He saw this coming and he warned us. He warned that the madman is the one who has all the logic, but none of the largeness. Our modern culture is full of these adults who want fairy tales, but reject the storyteller, who want Narnia, yeah, but they don't want Aslan in it, who long for Eden while denying the fall. I watched a video recently that shattered me. I was crying over it. There was this young woman. She was pretty. She was articulate. She was fragile. And she was sitting in her car, maybe outside of Disney, maybe outside of Universal, one of the big ones. And she was recording a message through her selfie lens for strangers, I assume, who had mocked her, or maybe she saw somebody mocking her online, mocked her for loving it all too much. And she said, almost through tears, do you think we don't know we're crazy? Do you think we don't know we're broken? And then she named the labels that we gave them. ADHD, depression, anxiety, trauma, every diagnosis the system threw gleefully at the millennials to cover our own wounds. She said, we know we're broken. And it hit me right between the eyes. These aren't grown-ups clinging to fairy tales out of immaturity. These are orphans looking for a home. These are daughters without fathers taught to find male approval in perverts and wolves. She didn't say that part, I did, because I saw it. And it broke my heart. It broke it because the longing I saw was real, but without Christ, the kingdom that they reach for is only pixels and plaster. Without a father, their innocence is never protected. It is only preyed upon. Let me tell you about two types of madness Chesterton identifies in today's reading, and they both live within the modern mind. One is the man who thinks everyone is against him. He's logical, yes, he's too logical. Every stare, every silence, every whispered word behind his back, every forgetful glance is part of the grand plot against him. He explains everything, but he sees nothing. He is the center of every conspiracy, the star of every imagined betrayal. He has built a whole universe in which he is the victim, and he cannot imagine a world where people simply aren't thinking about him at all. Chesterton says that's not insight. That's a shrinking world and a paranoia loop, a theater where only one actor ever plays a role. And then there's the other type of madman or mad person, the one who thinks about everyone else far too much. You've met them. Busybodies, not out of love, out of emptiness. The busybody, the one who can't live their own life, so they try to live yours. They can't bear silence, so they fill it with chatter about other people's flaws, other people's choices. Their own story feels too small, so they invade yours. But all three types, the paranoid, the meddler, and the nostalgic Disney adult, they are symptoms of the exact same disease. They've lost the art of being little before their God. One builds a world where everyone is watching him. One invades the lives of others because his own feels weightless to him, and one clings to childhood magic because adult meaning has completely and totally collapsed. And then there's the opposite extreme, the cynic. Not the one who longs for magic, but the one who mocks it. He scoffs at wonder. He despises innocence. He believes everything is a scam. Every joy is naive. Every purity is fake. So now we have four shadows. The paranoid, who cannot believe he's not the sinner. The meddler, who cannot bear to look inward. The Disney adult who longs for magic but lacks a map to the real kingdom. And the cynic, who burns the map and laughs at those who are still searching. Each has built a life too large, too loud, too wounded to see the sky. Each has forgotten the holy freedom of being small enough to be held by God. Let us now turn to the Prince of Paradox himself, G.K. Chesterton, and see what holy mischief and ancient wisdom he has for us this week. But before we open the scroll, can I ask you something simple? Do these lessons stir something in you that the world can't explain? Do they give you language for your ache, hope for your mind, clarity for your soul? Do they make you feel just a little more seen, a little more anchored, a little more alive? If they do, would you help us keep this going? Every like pushes truth a little further through the fog, and every subscribe becomes another log on the fire. And I want you to know, I don't take it lightly. I need you, not as fans, but as fellow laborers in the field, not to build me, but to reach them, the ones still lost in noise, still hungering for meaning, still waiting for someone to name what they feel. You matter to this mission, and I am deeply grateful that you walk with me. Now, let's open the scroll. Suppose, for instance, it were the first case that I took as typical. Suppose it were the case of a man who accused everybody of conspiring against him. If we could express our deepest feelings of protest and appeal against his obsession, I suppose we would say something like this. Oh, I admit that you have your case and have it by heart, and that many things do fit into other things, as you say. I admit that your explanation explains a great deal, but what a great deal it leaves out. Are there no other stories in the world except yours? And are all men busy with your business? Suppose we grant the details. Perhaps when the man in the street did not seem to see you, it was only his cunning. Perhaps when the policeman asked you your name, it was only because he knew it already. But how much happier you would be if you only knew that these people cared nothing about you. How much larger your life would be if yourself could become smaller in it, if you could really look at other men with common curiosity and pleasure, if you could see them walking as they are in their sunny selfishness and their virile indifference, you would begin to be interested in them because they were not interested in you. You would break out of this tiny and tawdry theater in which your own little plot is always being played, and you would find yourself under a freer sky in a street full of splendid strangers. Or suppose it were the second case of madness, that of a man who claims the crown. Your impulse would be to answer, all right, perhaps you know that you are the King of England, but why do you care? Make one magnificent effort and you will be a human being and look down on all the kings of the earth. Or it might be the third case of the madman who called himself Christ. If we said what we felt, we should say, so, you are the creator and redeemer of the world. But what a small world it must be. What a little heaven you must inhabit with angels no bigger than butterflies. How sad it must be to be God, and an inadequate God at that. Is there really no life fuller and no love more marvelous than yours? And is it really in your small and painful pity that all flesh must put its faith? How much happier you would be, how much more of you there would be if the hammer of a higher God could smash your small cosmos, scattering the stars like spangles, and leave you in the open, free like other men, to look up as well as down. To the meddler and the paranoid, to the one who watches everyone else too closely, and to the one who believes everyone is watching them, you are not cursed. You are crowded by fear, by control, and by yourself. You've made yourself either too central or you've made yourself too scattered. You were never meant to carry the whole world on your back, and you were never meant to be the judge of everyone else's steps. What if I told you freedom begins the moment you stop orbiting yourself? What if I told you the silence you're afraid of is the very place God is waiting to speak to you? So lay down your script, drop your gavel, and look up. There is a freer sky, and it does not revolve around you. And to you, dear millennial, you are broken, but not beyond repair. We failed you. We left you to fend for yourselves in a hedonistic and selfish culture that we built for our own comfort and our own convenience. But listen to me now, and hear it not as guilt, but as a summons. The world needs you. You were born in the overlap between bedtime prayers and bedtime screens. You were told you were special, but never taught how to suffer. You were given labels instead of fathers, options instead of altars, magic instead of meaning. And now you are raising children of your own. What will you give them? Will you give them what we gave you? Will you give them safe lies? Or will you risk giving them dangerous truth? The world has offered them fairy castles and streaming spells, but your ceiling must not become their sanctuary. They need to see you look up, not to nostalgia, but to glory. They need to hear you repent, not just reminisce. They need to feel you tremble under the weight of real hope, not curated aesthetics. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be pierced. Let the ache turn to intercession. Let the longing turn to legacy. You can be the generation that gave the next generation something better than the castles made of pixels and plaster that we handed to you. You can be the ones who built altars in living rooms. You can be the generation that gave their children theology with teeth, worship with weight, and stories where the cross isn't optional, the cross is central. You don't have to go back to childhood. You have to go forward to the kingdom. You would break out of this tiny and tawdry theater in which your own little plot is always being played and find yourself under a freer sky. G.K. Chesterton. Millennials, look up. Your children are watching. You remember, don't you? The cupboard under the stairs, the letter that you wished would come, the feeling that maybe, just maybe, you were meant for more. You remember whispering spells to yourself at recess. You remember the scar, the train, the castle, not because it was fantasy, but because it felt like prophecy. You were never really obsessed with magic. You were aching for meaning, for friendship that wouldn't break, for a mentor who wouldn't leave you, for evil to be named and vanquished, for light to actually win the day. But the stories were only shadows. And I need to tell you, the real story is much deeper, the real war is much older, and the real victory has already been won. There is a scar, but it's on his back. There is a chosen one, but he was chosen to suffer. There is a resurrection, but it didn't happen in a forest. It happened in a garden. And the letter came, delivered not by owl, but by spirit and by flame, not sealed with wax, but sealed with wounds, not written in ink, written in blood. Yours eternally, the head of the house of mercy, the keeper of every key, the one who loved you first. Christ is King. Hail to the King.